Welcome back to Media7, where I'm talking rugby, the World Cup and the media with Tracy Nelson, Greg McGee and Finlay McDonald. It's time for a look at the numbers with Sam Mulgrew in The Source.
Official heads have been lost in the cloud for years now. We've been told up to 200,000 people, or 4 times the projection, crammed the Auckland City waterfront on the Rugby World Cup opening night. But statistician Tony Cooper says that's impossible. He estimated a crowd of 70,000 people. But Britomart trains can only move 10,500 passengers per hour, and that's with Swiss-style efficiency. A 46% increase in passengers for Auckland Transport meant it fell over. Trains were cancelled, buses were swamped, and ferries had to turn back. The world and 81% of Kiwis were watching. But we were told things would be tickety-boo for Ireland versus Australia. Indeed, Queen's Wharf was only half full during the game, and Rugby World Cup Minister Murray McCully sat almost alone in his train carriage on the way there. But on the bright side, it's all working out for the IRB. They've sold more than 80% of all seats available and, nudging their target, have made more than $250 million. Now the point of it all, some cup stats from Tracy Nelson. In the 19 games so far, Romania and England have conceded the most penalties and England has received the most yellow cards. From 96 total tries, the All Blacks have scored the most and, ahead of France, the most points too. Johnny Wilkinson has landed 3 out of 8 kicking attempts, while Fiji's Jeremiah Bai landed 9 out of 10. And there's still a whole month left to go. Cross your fingers.
Well, Tracy, let's talk about these stats because they have become quite widely accepted. Why did you come up with them?
There was a gap. Most stats you see, they talk about tries scored and penalties conceded, blah, 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 and metres gained and running metres and everything else, but it doesn't actually tell you who's done the work.
No, and most of those stats are about the backs, aren't they?
Oh no, and forwards, running metres, but you know, you can run with the ball and then if you bomb the pass or die with it, it doesn't really tell you much. So my first 3 to the breakdown stats are looking at the first, not always forwards, first 3 players to get there and secure the ball. We all know games won and lost up front and backs are just there to add a few extra numbers at the end. So, yeah.
But well, the thing that strikes me, particularly with the first 3 to the breakdown, is that it now seems to be a widely accepted metric of the game.
Yes.
Other people are using it without crediting you.
Well, I don't think you could really trademark it as such. And it is something that's been bandied around the tracks for years, but just probably not. We talk about arrivals at the breakdown, but it is the first 3 that are crucial in the modern game. You've got tackled player, you need 1 man over the ball, create the ruck, next man in to get your ball security. So in an ideal world, that's what happens. And of course, as Australia found out, if you can't do that, it all turns to custard. Now,
your day job is as a scientist. Did that help?
I guess I can use Excel quite well. It's just observation skills, so yeah, I think they're kind of interlocked and they're kind of very remote in the same way. So,
Greg, what have you made of the coverage? Because we've had, both in print and on the television, a lot of unfamiliar voices. Have they been a welcome addition?
Well, I think what's impressed me with some of the European columnists, the journos, is that they come here really interested in New Zealand as a Pacific nation. They're interested in the Polynesian and Māori aspects of New Zealand, very interested in that. They're not come here to find a sort of last bastion of Anglo-Saxonry. Unlike some of the British press or English press who seem to come tracing vestiges of lost empire and are terribly anxious to tell us what we're getting wrong and what we should do.
Although Stephen Jones has been pretty quiet this time, hasn't he?
Yes, he has, but it's early days, and I do feel sorry for Stephen because he's a dyed-in-the-wool Welshman who you know, earns his quid by being an apologist for English rugby. I mean, the self-loathing must be unendurable.
Now, Finlay, you've got some insight into Māori Television's coverage, which I gather has been going quite well.
Well, you know, I mean, you remember there was a lot of controversy about when they went for the rights, for the free-to-air rights. It's turned out well for them, as far as I know. They've on those nights where they are the only free-to-air channel carrying the game. They've had their historically highest ratings ever. They've outrated Sky in the process. I was told anecdotally that there were a lot of people in Dunedin watching the pure reo commentary, which is
remarkable.
Pretty remarkable, yeah. I guess all of Naitahu were tuned in. I don't know. But I have to pick up on something Greg was saying. The Māoriness of the opening ceremony and the continuing coverage is fantastic. And you'd it's times like this you realise that, you know, it's quite nice to have a bit of iwi in the kiwi, you know.
Although not everyone agrees with you on that. If you look at the discussion forums on stuff or the Kiwi blog comments, the people seem to, there are a lot of people who thought the opening ceremony was racist because there weren't enough white people in it.
No, see, without the Māori element, we would have had dancing Vegemite jars and a couple of, overweight middle-aged guys in replica All Black jerseys waving Heineken bottles. That's our culture.
Sean Fitzpatrick in the pink car, which we're not going to actually talk about. The commentators, as I said, Tracy, there have been a lot of different voices, whereas normally we're stuck with the same old people on Sky. Have you been enjoying that?
I have, and I've been particularly enjoying Miles Harrison and Stuart Barnes. Loved their commentary for England-Georgia. They just ripped into England in a way I don't think our Sky commentators do with the All Blacks, because we've sort of got this little understanding between Sky and the New Zealand Rugby Union that you don't rock the boat and you don't question what the union does. So I'm not sure how it's going down back in England, but I've certainly enjoyed Miles Harrison and Stuart Barnes, just no hold bars, and they tell it like it is, and it's great.
How about the referees?
Interesting. Just did a few numbers on the referees just to see, where all these penalties are coming from, and we've got a range. I think we've got 9 or 10 refs, and there's a range. I think Alain Roland has given the most penalties, or awarded the most penalties, averaging about 26 a game, and our mate Wayne Barnes only 15, but then it's swayed by who they've refereed. People who are refereeing Argentina, Romania and England, there are a lot of penalties awarded in that game. Wayne Barnes of the Italy-Russia game, there was a lot of penalty advantages without the penalties actually being awarded because Italy went on to score the tries. So
Barnes does tend to miss the odd forward pass too, doesn't he?
So people say.
Yeah. No, they haven't been too bad on forward passes this tournament. It's just those scrums and breakdowns.
You haven't mentioned any New Zealand referees.
We've only got one.
Yes.
And we're so thankful every night that Bryce Lawrence cannot referee the All Blacks in this tournament. Enough said.
I can't believe how much she knows.
She's astonishing. She knows a lot more than you. Is there anything that's particularly annoying you about the coverage?
Yes, that ad break that Sky TV had. We have the anthems, we were ready to go, and we cut to an ad for Bunnings. I'm not shopping at Bunnings. Bad luck Bunnings, but that is an irritating ad break.
Not on Maori television.
No, that was one of their points of difference. It's really annoying, isn't it? And they must have done a deal so that the game is started on cue, and that's heading towards the American, NFL model, which is, I don't like it.
Are we being as nice as we should to our visiting rugby fans? Because this week there was a story in the Sydney Morning Herald saying that New Zealanders had spat on Australian rugby fans, or at least attempted to. Is this a beat up, or?
Well, I hope it is. I mean, generally speaking, New Zealand has been brilliant, and New Zealanders have looked deep within themselves to find some sort of threadbare connection to the Irish or to the Georgians or Russians, and it's been fantastic. But definitely in the Herald poll, the least favourite nation to win, if it was Australia.
And apparently France. We'd like France to win if the
We'd
All Blacks
like to,
don't.
yeah. If the All Blacks can't win, France is the next. Which is quite surprising.
It's that strange grudging respect, isn't it?
Is this an Auckland poll?
Possibly, yes.
Herald Digipol.
Yeah,
I don't think you can't avoid the fact that in a rugby tournament there's going to be a high buff head element. It's like the chaos, the Armageddon.
Do you mean off the field? Or
I mean
as well.
Yes. It just comes with the territory, and it'd be a shame if that was the dominant factor. I haven't.
From buffheads to the corridors of power. In 1987, when we last won the Rugby World Cup, and it was held here, the Rugby World Cup was held between a significant earthquake and a general election. The incumbent won that one. What are the political implications here?
Well, you'd have to say relatively minor, the implications. I haven't liked the fact that we're sort of all meant to be cheerleaders for a default election campaign at one level. I don't like buying into that. I can't imagine that the result's really going to shift the centre of gravity politically. It has in the past seen the incumbent party lose points. That's a fairly kind of weird atavistic response, that you blame the government for the All Blacks losing. But it does happen, but I can't see it having much influence. Right,
and finally, one word answer, are the All Blacks going to win the Rugby World Cup?
It's possible.
I think that silence was quite telling. And with that, we'll conclude this discussion. It's possible. Good grief.
You're superstitious.
Yes. Well, that does conclude this discussion and this program. We can barely imagine what the Rugby World Cup will deliver us next. Thanks to Tracy Nelson, Greg McGee and Finlay McDonald, and to you for watching. We'll be back with Media7 at the same time next week. Until then, tackle a roll clear and keep your bind up. Goodbye.